Hello, friends. Ben Ochart here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today, I want to talk with you about a secret, that something that isn't talked about much by some of the more experienced fish keepers out there. And I'm going to get into it with you, and I'm going to talk with you about how it impacts how you keep fish. Let's go ahead and get it underway. If you're new to the channel, please be sure to hit that sub button and that bell, and that will tell YouTube that something good is going on here, that you like it, and it'll encourage YouTube to recommend the channel to other fish keepers like you and me. Very appreciated when you do that. Thank you so much. So the secret I want to talk with you about has to do with testing. A lot of folks out there talk about water testing, and if you participate in any Facebook groups or blogs out there or fish keeper groups, the first thing that you'll see very often, the first thing that you'll hear when people are talking about something going on with their tank is test your water. That's the first advice they give, test your water. And that's not bad advice. But if you take a look at what the more experienced, what the experts are doing, you'll find something very interesting. And I conducted a survey on YouTube, and I'll show it to you. As you can see here in the survey, it looks like what's driving people to test their water is something being wrong. And if nothing is apparently wrong, they'll go for weeks, months, and sometimes always without necessarily testing their water. Now, I'm not encouraging you, and don't take this video as me giving you advice to not test your water. You got to use common sense with this. And the way a lot of these experienced fish keepers have arrived at this point is that initially when they first set up their tanks, they did do tests. They were testing somewhat frequently. I suspect in the very beginning, they were testing fairly frequently as the tank was becoming cycled, as they added new fish. Certainly after adding a good number of new stock, they would run tests for a few weeks. But after a while, what happened is they get comfortable, they get familiar with the look of the fish and the tank. Then what happens is their water testing becomes a use as needed tool that's in their fish keeping toolbox, not something that is done obsessively or every week. And so you get this sort of spectrum of fish keepers. You get these fish keepers that operate in a sort of high anxiety. Maybe they had a big die-off at some point. And now from that point forward, they test all the time. And never really reveals much. It tends to test out sort of the same all the time, but they keep doing it. Like they're still trying to prevent that one thing that already happened. Then you get the person who has tested for a while and now feels comfortable with their feel for the tank and are operating more off of what they're observing. I mean, look at the fish. I mean, that's the real key thing. Look at the fish over my shoulder here, and what I see there is I see active fish. When I feed them, they attack the food very aggressively, very voraciously, with a lot of appetite. And I'm not seeing indicators that something might be wrong. Now, somebody in the survey made a very interesting comment. They suggested that from time to time, test the tap, because very often that's where some of the problems are. Your local water source has started to add a lot more chlorine or chloramine, something, to the water, and or maybe the nitrates from the tap have gone way up, and your less than 50% water changes are not reducing your nitrates. Interestingly enough, I did a survey on nitrates, and people didn't really seem to be that excited about nitrates until it got up to about 40 parts per million. The majority seemed to want to go into action. Surprisingly, it took 100 parts per million for about 12% to start paying attention to nitrates. And some people in the comments said they didn't pay attention to nitrates at all. And again, we're more into watching the fish, look at their color, their behavior, how they're eating, how they're responding, the condition of their fins, things of that nature, right? And so very interesting what's going on here. And I'm noticing a change among fish keepers where perhaps 10 years ago or so, there seemed to be a bit of just an anxiety, just a worry. And that worry seems to have been replaced now with a bit more common sense, a bit more, hey, you know what? Let's not stress it so much. Let's enjoy the fish. Let's not test every hour. Let's not be absolutely certain that the tank's about to crash every second. Let's instead just enjoy ourselves, enjoy the fish. Every now and then, if something doesn't look quite right, let's bring out that test kit or bring out some test strips and let's do a quick check of what's going on. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and check the tap and see what's going on there. In the water test survey, it also surprised me a bit that 16% of those that responded, and I asked for folks who've been keeping fish for 10 years or longer, 16% of them said they never test. And again, these are probably very, very experienced fish keepers who have become very, very alert, very in tune with what's going on with the fish and the look of the fish, the look of the water, behavior, eating, all those kinds of patterns, color, all that sort of thing. So, what's the secret? The secret among the more experienced fish keepers, we don't test that much. We're more into looking at the fish, looking at the water, checking the basics, water temperature, water movement, how they're eating, color, behavior. That's what we're looking at. And we pull that test kit out as one of many tools that we have when we think something might need to be drilled down, taken a closer look at, right? That's when we pull out the test kit. Something ain't right. Let me check the water. In the beginning, as a new fish keeper, continue to do your regular testing. And after a while, what will happen is you'll start to get a feel for how things are, and you'll be able to trust your perceptions and trust your judgment, and again, use the water test kit as a tool that you use when you deem it's needed, not obsessively every day or once every 4 or 5 days or so. It really just adds unnecessary work, in my opinion. Now, that's the key. Me expressing one YouTuber's opinion. How you keep fish, ultimately, that's up to you. Do with what works and what's been working for you. But just realize, real experienced guys out there and gals, they're not whipping out that test kit as often as we thought. And as the survey reveals, the majority of them, or at least 50% of those who answered, of 862 folks that took the survey, 50% when I suspect something is wrong, 16% never. And we have a group that is every week, a few times a month, and a few times a year. I thought that was very interesting. What do you think? How often do you test your water? Comment below, let me know, and let me know why you're in that particular routine. I'd be very curious to find out how you arrived at that routine. I look forward to seeing you on Saturday at the Cichlids and Coffee live stream. That's at 11 a.m. We'll talk about this and a whole bunch of other interesting topics. And that's it for me. Thank you so much for tuning in. You are, as always, very, very appreciated. Bye-bye.